What's older than we think? The first carbonated drink to be sold to the public was invented by Swiss watchmaker and amateur scientist J. Schwapp in 1783, who sold his delicious sparkling water to thirsty customers in Geneva. In just 7 years, he was doing business so fast that he moved the factory to London and introduced a new flavor, sparkling lemon, to stand out from competitors who were trying to imitate his drink. Beer is thought to be older than bread. It's much easier to fill a jar with wheat and water, let it ferment, and brew beer than it is to grind grain, mix it, and bake it. Sharks. As a species, they're older than the rings of Saturn. National Geographic was founded in 1888. I was really surprised to discover when Oxford University was founded. They don't know the year for sure, but they know there was definitely teaching going on there in 1096. The fact that the lighter is older than the match shook my head as a kid. It also gave me the curiosity to question things that seems obvious. The electric car. What is likely the first human-carrying electric vehicle with its own power source was tested along a Paris street in April 1881 by French inventor Gustave Trouve. The first crude electric car was built in the 1830s, but it was essentially a semi-functioning model. The electric car was a direct competitor to gasoline-powered vehicles until the 1920s, when roads got better, people started driving further than the range of an electric car, and the world started finding major oil reserves. Escalators have been around since 1859, though they were called rotating stairs. Cruise control, power windows, and automatic headlights. I saw all three on a 1955 Cadillac. Oh, and the radio on it had a seek function. Sharks. Sharks as a family are older than trees. The ancient Romans, well, the wealthy ones had central heating in their homes. You can actually still see the pipes in some of the buildings at Herculaneum. Flushing toilets date all the way back to the Indus River Valley civilization, back in 2000 BC. Oreos. I was shocked to learn that Oreos predate chocolate chip cookies, sliced bread, and my 100-year-old great-grandmother. Brain surgery. In 1997, archaeologists discovered an ancient tomb in the French village of Ensisheim from 5000 BC, which contained the decomposing body of a 50-year-old man with holes in his skull. After a thorough examination, it was determined that the holes, located near the frontal lobe, were caused by a type of surgery, not by forced trauma, and the operation appears to have been successful because the wounds healed before the patient's death. To this day, however, researchers cannot say for sure what exactly the surgery was trying to fix. Light. It may only take 8 minutes for light to travel to Earth from surface of the Sun, but the light bounces around inside the Sun for over 10,000 years before it reaches the surface. The name Tiffany. It dates back to the 12th century, and has actually led to a thing in writing called the Tiffany problem, because you can have a well-researched historical novel that people just don't buy into, because you named your 12th century peasant Tiffany. It just sounds laughably anachronistic. Contraceptives such as condoms were around a very long time and made of hard leather. Paul Rudd. Nintendo. This company was actually created in 1889. Beer. It's one of the oldest prepared drinks in the world. It not only predates every civilization but actually contributed to their creation. The year 1990. We are as close to it as we are the year 2050. I don't know if this counts, but dinosaurs lived on the Earth a lot longer than most people think. When you think of dinosaurs, you think of their extinction, but they roamed the Earth for 165 million years. Compare that to our 6 million and it's almost mind-boggling, at least IMO. The modern form of humans is 200,000 years old, but if we include our humanoid ancestors, we've been here 6 million years. I get it, dinosaurs are still around. What I meant to say was the dinosaur era. Trees. There are a lot of trees that are older than you would expect. We are farther from the release date of the first Back to the Future movie than Marty was from 1955. Social media. Wealthy ancient Romans had a system where they used slaves as scribes and messengers in order to share gossip and art, poetry and news updates with friends in their social circle. Stonehenge. It predates the oldest pyramid in Egypt by nearly 300 years. Google, Reddit, YouTube. It's hard to imagine that they already have been around for 15 years, with Google actually being around 20 years old. An entire generation has now grown up that cannot remember that it wasn't always there. Ancient Egyptians who built the pyramids. The ancient Egyptians were as old to the ancient Romans as the ancient Romans are to us. Netflix. I feel like it is only a few years old, but it was invented in 1997. Contact lenses. Leonardo da Vinci had the idea of contact lenses in 1508, and the first successful contact lenses were made in 1888. Oxford University. It's older than the Aztec Empire. Humans with our intelligence and empathy and rationality. People in the past lacked education and our cumulative knowledge, but even cavemen thousands of years ago didn't differ too much from us. Cave of Forgotten Dreams, a documentary about cave paintings from 30,000 years ago, really drove this home for me. The art there is so expertly rendered, it really shows a thinking and curious mind. The food at the back of your cupboard. Touch screen in cars. That has been around since 1986. In my experience, a lot of people I know personally don't realize that music cassettes were invented in the 60s. Cassettes didn't really take off in the States until the late 70s, but the first albums released on cassettes hit shelves in 1966. Law. Roman law was so advanced that there are still large chunks of statutes in civil law countries taken pretty much directly from Roman codice written 1500–2000 years ago. Important maritime laws are adaptations of medieval provisions. Lots of business law statutes borrow heavily from Napoleonic laws. In common law countries, you find stuff like the Statute of Marlborough from the 1200s, still in effect, along with still relevant case law from the 1700s. Commercial aircraft. Most are 10–15 years old, yet a lot of people think they get replaced like cars. They are still very safe though despite their age. The Stanley Cup. It predates the NHL, and if you look at the history of teams that have won it, there is a year where it wasn't awarded due to the Spanish flu pandemic. The top of it is the original trophy, but the rings on the bottom are replaced every couple of years when they fill up with names. A large portion of autism spectrum disorders. About 40% of them have been in human genetics since around 40,000 BCE. Goddamn genetic bottleneck causing supervolcano eruption. The first selfie was taken in 1839. The wealthiest of the ancient Minoans had very close to modern-day plumbing. The entire Minoan culture is really fascinating, not to mention their poor choice of clothing. LOL. The world in general. The theory that if all of the Earth's history were laid out on a calendar, our current century would only make up the last 10 seconds or so of December 31st. Always blows my mind to consider it that way. The arrival of people in North America. Many scientists believe a sea route was used to navigate to the continent much earlier than the Bering Land Bridge. This is hard to prove, however, because any archaeological sites that could be found along shorelines are now well underwater. The dinosaurs. They didn't know what grass was. A Native American empire nearly a third of the size of the present-day United States existed in the Great Lakes region at the time the Old Testament of the Bible was thought to be written. Betty White. Jennifer